What if the strangest, most alien landscapes in the universe aren't out there among the stars, but right here, in a single drop of seawater? Magnify it, and suddenly you're in another world. Shapes of glass, lattices of impossible geometry, shimmering bodies that look like spacecraft adrift in the black. These are diatoms, plankton, comb jellies. Creatures so translucent and strange they look like something that should be floating between galaxies, not swimming off the coast of Earth. Their bodies are mostly water, their outlines sculpted by rules they never chose. Rules that somehow make them look like the cosmos itself. And here's where it gets strange. The patterns you see under the microscope don't stay there. Zoom out and you start noticing the same forms everywhere. Lightning forks like the branches of a tree. A river delta mirrors the veins in a leaf. Your lungs branch in the same fractal rhythm as coral reefs. Even galaxies spiral with the same curve you can find on a seashell you pick up at the beach. Coincidence? Or is the universe hinting at something bigger? Scientists have long noticed this echo, this family resemblance between things that, at first glance, seem unrelated. The mathematician Benoit Mandelbrot gave us the word fractal to describe shapes that repeat at different scales, from the outline of a coastline to the folds of a brain. The biologist Darcy Thompson once argued that everything is the way it is because it became that way, meaning that natural law, not design, is what sculpts the geometry of life. And physicist Adrian Baden has proposed the Constructal law, that flow systems, whether rivers, trees or blood vessels, naturally evolve to find the most efficient paths. It's as if the universe is economical. It keeps arriving at the same solutions, the same motifs: branch, spiral, network repeat. Which raises a question with enormous stakes. If these shapes are everywhere, from the tiniest cells to the largest galaxies, is life itself inevitable? Could the universe be set up in such a way that complexity, order, and maybe even consciousness are not accidents, but habits of matter, written into the equations from the start? That's what this journey's about. The blueprint. Not DNA, though we'll get there, but a deeper code, a physics of form, a set of patterns that recur across scale after scale. We'll start small, where the patterns first reveal themselves, inside the microscopic worlds that hide in every raindrop and tide pool. We'll watch how simple rules of chemistry generate stripes and spots, how spirals emerge from steady growth, and how branching keeps showing up whenever something needs to spread or deliver. Then we'll step back. We'll look at deserts that self-organize into waves of marching dunes, snowflakes that sculpt themselves in mid-air, and galaxies that arrange themselves into a cosmic web that looks eerily like the neurons firing inside your head. And from there, we'll stretch outward to the alien. Deep-sea creatures that glow like living glass will become mirrors for what life might look like on Europa or Enceladus. Hydrothermal vents on Earth will guide us to plumes bursting from icy moons. We'll ask, if physics is truly universal, should we expect alien life to follow the same blueprint we see here? Finally, we'll come home to you, to the fractal networks inside your lungs, the patterns of your heartbeat, the trillions of microbes that make up your second self, to the fact that your body is not an exception to the blueprint, it is one of its most elaborate expressions. This isn't a story about trivia, it's about something deeper. Why the universe keeps writing the same shapes into everything, everywhere, at every scale. And whether those shapes can tell us something about why we're here, what life is, and how much of it might be waiting for us beyond the sky. So look again at that drop of seawater. Alien creatures drifting in the dark, carrying secrets older than DNA. If you can learn to read their shapes, you're not just learning about biology, you're glimpsing the handwriting of the cosmos itself. Take a drop of seawater. To the human eye it looks empty, clear, unremarkable, but magnify it and you enter a universe. Inside, translucent bodies drift like spaceships, latticed shells spin like glass ornaments, and shimmering forms pulse with a life that looks more alien than anything in science fiction. These are plankton and diatoms, comb jellies and salps, creatures so otherworldly that if you saw them in a film about deep space you wouldn't question it. Many are almost entirely transparent, their tissues little more than scaffolds for the faintest traces of colour and light. Some can refract rainbows through their gelatinous ribs, others glow with bioluminescence like living lanterns. A chain of salps can stretch for meters, yet each individual animal is almost invisible. These delicate architectures are as real, as essential, as the fish we eat or the trees that give us shade, and yet most people never realize they exist. Then there are diatoms, single-celled algae that build their bodies out of glass. Their silica shells are among the most intricate natural designs on Earth. Hexagons and spirals, lattices and filigrees, patterns repeated with microscopic precision. Each one looks manufactured, as if sculpted by an artist with infinite patience. And yet, diatoms are not art. They are survival. Their ornate glass houses strengthen them against predators and give them a way to thrive in oceans, lakes and rivers. Diatoms alone may produce up to 20% of the oxygen you breathe, every fifth breath, courtesy of living glass. And then there are the neurons inside your head. Under the microscope they weave into glowing networks, electrical storms flashing across their branches. Place an image of neurons next to a map of galaxies, and the resemblance is uncanny. In both, filaments connect to dense clusters, forming webs of energy and information. They operate at scales so different, micrometers versus millions of light years, that the comparison seems absurd, and yet the geometry is there. Neurons and galaxies both solve the same problem: how to connect many nodes without wasting energy. This is the first sign that biology and physics may be rhyming with each other. Patterns echo across scales, not because of coincidence, but because the same rules, efficiency, flow, distribution, keep arriving at the same solutions. The brain doesn't look like a galaxy because it was designed to. It looks like a galaxy because both are following a blueprint written in physics. Even within a single cell, the architecture feels cosmic. Mitochondria busily churn out energy, like little stars. Microtubules stretch and contract like highways. Vesicles move cargo along molecular rails, each protein folding into machines precise enough to rival any human factory. None of these parts know the whole picture. None of them intend to make a cell work. And yet together, they form an emergent order, a city in miniature, as alive and intricate as anything we see at human scale. Scientists call this self-organization the ability for complex systems to arise from simple interactions. Birds flock without a leader, fish school without a plan, sand dunes align themselves without a designer. Likewise, cells coalesce into tissues, tissues into organs, and organs into organisms. Complexity, once thought improbable, turns out to be natural. When conditions are right, matter doesn't just sit idle, it organizes. This is why microscopic life often feels alien. We are not used to thinking of complexity as inevitable, but under the microscope, you can watch it happening in real time. Order emerging from randomness, patterns arising from chaos. A single-celled organism with no brain and no awareness can create beauty that looks like art, but is only physics playing itself out. And these organisms are not rare. A litre of seawater may hold billions of them. Together they form the base of the food chain, the lungs of the planet, and the invisible foundation of life. Without them, oxygen would vanish, ecosystems would collapse, and Earth would be unrecognizable. The alien-looking world inside a drop of water is not exotic, it's essential. What makes this more profound is that the same visual motifs repeat elsewhere. Look at coral reefs, colonies of tiny polyps building calcium skeletons that resemble branching trees. Look at slime molds, which expand across surfaces in networks that eerily resemble both roadmaps and neural networks. At every scale, life converges on the same themes: branching, spiraling, connecting. And so the microscope becomes a telescope turned inward. It reveals that the blueprints we associate with galaxies and planets are already here, already at work in creatures too small to see. The alien is not distant, it's everywhere. By beginning here with the microscopic, we establish the first principle of the blueprint. When energy flows and matter is allowed to move, patterns emerge. Cells look like cities, neurons look like galaxies, plankton look like spacecraft, not because they are copies of one another, but because they are all following the same underlying rules. And that is the real marvel. The fact that life, from its smallest scales, already resembles the universe it inhabits. Stand in a forest and look up. Branches split into branches which split again into finer twigs, tracing lines into the sky. Now look down. Roots mirror the canopy, forking their way through the soil in search of water and nutrients. Then leave the forest and look at a river delta from above. Countless veins carry water to the sea in the same repeating rhythm. Look at lightning crackling across the sky. It follows the same script. This is nature's obsession with branching. It's not just a coincidence, and it's not mere beauty. It's efficiency. Whenever something needs to distribute or collect, blood, water, electricity, sap, the universe defaults to branching. It's the fastest way to cover ground while minimizing effort. Engineers call this the Constructal law, the idea that flow systems evolve to move energy and material with greater ease. Nature discovered it first, but branching is only one line in the blueprint. Another is the spiral. Spirals are everywhere once you notice them. The shell of a nautilus curls according to a logarithmic spiral, each new chamber expanding proportionally to the last. Sunflower seeds pack themselves into spirals that follow Fibonacci numbers, maximizing space and light. Hurricanes swirl with the same geometry, as do spiral galaxies stretching their arms across millions of light years. Different scales, different materials, but the same curve. The spiral is mathematics embodied. Growth that is steady and turning creates this shape again and again. Plants don't need to know math. Physics does the work for them. By growing at angles that minimize overlap, seeds and leaves capture the most sunlight, and storms distribute force evenly. The golden ratio and Fibonacci sequences are not mystical. They're practical solutions written into the fabric of growth. Then there are patterns that seem to appear from nowhere, as if matter is painting itself. Spots on a leopard, stripes on a zebra, ripples on a tropical fish. In 1952, mathematician Alan Turing proposed a simple explanation: reaction diffusion. When two chemicals spread through tissue, one activating and the other inhibiting, the interplay can generate repeating motifs. It doesn't take a painter to draw the stripes, just chemistry running its equations. Today, computer simulations of Turing's model can produce everything from leopard spots to zebra stripes, even the mottling on seashells. His idea, once speculative, has since been validated in biology. Fish patterns and mammalian coats often follow the very logic Turing imagined. But the script isn't confined to living things. Look at the desert. Sand dunes arrange themselves into ridges and waves, marching slowly under the force of the wind. From the ground, they seem chaotic, but from the air, patterns emerge. Parallel lines, crescents, stars. Each dune follows simple rules of grain movement and airflow, yet together they create order across landscapes. Snowflakes tell a similar story. A snow crystal begins as a tiny hexagon of ice. As water vapor attaches, branches sprout. Temperature, humidity, and airflow dictate how those branches grow, and because no two paths are identical, every snowflake is unique. Yet the six-fold symmetry never changes. It's an emergent geometry, sculpted not by design, but by physics. And then there are fractals, the mathematics of roughness, the geometry of repetition. Coastlines look jagged no matter how closely you zoom in. Clouds billow with repeating edges. Mountains from a distance look like triangles, but up close they break into smaller ridges, and those into finer crags. Benoit Mandelbrot coined the term fractal to describe these shapes that repeat across scales. What once seemed irregular and messy was suddenly quantifiable. Nature, it turns out, has a preference for fractals because they maximize surface area and interaction. Lungs, roots, river networks, all fractals, because they need to exchange as much as possible with their environment. What all these examples show is that nature doesn't improvise, it reuses. It discovers efficient answers and applies them across domains, whether it's moving water through soil, distributing nutrients through veins, or scattering lightning across the sky. And here lies the deeper point. These patterns aren't just beautiful accidents. They're consequences of physics. Branching happens because it moves things faster. Spirals appear because growth under rotation follows mathematics. Stripes emerge because diffusion under constraints produces regular intervals. Snowflakes crystallize because water obeys symmetry at freezing temperatures. The universe isn't copying itself. It's following rules. Once you begin to see these patterns, the world becomes uncanny. You notice how your own veins echo the branches of a tree, how a river delta mirrors the structure of your lungs. You realize that the nautilus shell and the hurricane are distant cousins in geometry, that a snowflake falling on your hand has something in common with the stripes of a tiger and the ripples of sand in a desert. Patterns in nature are not decoration. They are signatures of the blueprint. And once you can read them, you begin to suspect that life, our lives, are part of a much wider story. Up to this point, we've looked at patterns as if they were curiosities, beautiful shapes the universe seems to favour. But here's the truth: they're not optional. They are demanded by physics. They are the inevitable outcomes of matter and energy in motion. Let's return to branching. Why does lightning split and fork rather than strike in a straight line? Because electricity, like water, seeks the easiest route through resistance. The moment one path starts forming, the electric field reshapes itself, and new branches sprout to find alternate routes. It's not art, it's optimization, solving the same problem millions of times in fractions of a second. The same principle governs the branching of your lungs. To get oxygen into your blood efficiently, airways must reach as much surface area as possible in a limited volume. Branching is the answer nature keeps circling back to, whether it's moving water, air, or electrons. Engineers like Adrian Bajan call this the Constructal law. Flow systems evolve so that they can flow more easily. In other words, designs are not just lucky, they're forced by the physics of efficiency. Order can also rise in places we'd least expect. In the mid-20th century, chemist Ilya Prigogine studied what he called dissipative structures, systems that create order by exporting chaos. A cell, for example, isn't a little miracle of order-defying entropy. It survives precisely because it feeds entropy into its environment. By burning energy and releasing waste, it buys itself a pocket of organization. The greater the imbalance, the more opportunity for order to appear. In this sense, life isn't opposed to the second law of thermodynamics. It's a direct consequence of it. Think about a pot of water on a stove. Heat it from below, and at first the molecules just jiggle faster, but push it harder and suddenly the system flips. Convection cells form. Columns of hot water rise, cooler water sinks, and hexagonal patterns appear on the surface. No one designed them. They're the system's way of handling the flow of energy. The same thing happens in the atmosphere as air currents create storms. It's physics insisting on order as a way of balancing imbalance. This is self-organization, and it's everywhere. Sand dunes align under the push of the wind. Bacteria colonies expand in fractal patterns. Starlings flock into coordinated swarms without a leader. Each bird follows simple rules. Keep close, don't crash, copy direction, and the result is an airborne ballet. Complexity arises not from command, but from repetition and feedback. What makes this profound is that it implies complexity is not fragile. It's inevitable. Given energy, given imbalance, given time, matter organizes, not always into life, but often into forms that echo it. Now stretch this principle outward. Galaxies themselves spin because gravity collapses clouds of gas into disks. Within those disks, spiral arms form not because they are structures in stone, but because waves of density sweep through, compressing gas, triggering star formation, moving on like ripples in a pond. A galaxy's spiral arms are traffic jams of stars, patterns emerging from gravity's relentless pull. Or look inward again, the rhythmic beat of your heart. At its core is an electrical pacemaker, cells firing in repeating cycles. The rhythm is not imposed. It emerges from the interplay of ion channels and feedback loops. Your heartbeat is physics at work, repeating itself with just enough irregularity to stay alive. Too perfect, and it signals danger. Too chaotic, and it collapses. Life balances on the edge of order and disorder. So the blueprint of life isn't a set of instructions etched in stone. It's a tendency, a bias in the universe towards certain shapes whenever energy moves. Branches to spread, spirals to grow, waves to oscillate, webs to connect. These patterns are the solutions physics keeps rediscovering, and that raises a deeper thought. If physics makes complexity likely, then maybe life itself, what we think of as improbable, might actually be common. Not common in its details, not common in its DNA, but but common in its forms. Wherever there is flow, wherever there is imbalance, wherever matter is nudged from stillness, the blueprint may be waiting to write itself again. This is where awe becomes unsettling. If life isn't a cosmic accident, then we may not be rare at all. The universe may be filled with different versions of the same habits, branching organisms, spiraling growths, networks exchanging energy and information. Not copies of Earth's life, but siblings in physics family. Which leaves us with a haunting possibility. Maybe the universe doesn't just allow life, it leans toward it. Maybe the blueprint doesn't only describe what is, but predicts what will be. When you look at the night sky, it feels infinite, scattered, random. Stars pinned against blackness, galaxies swirling without order. But zoom out far enough and the chaos resolves into structure. Astronomers mapping the universe discovered something astonishing. Galaxies not sprinkled evenly like dust, but strung along filaments, woven into a vast web that spans billions of light years. This cosmic web is the universe's skeleton. Galaxies cluster at the nodes, connected by glowing threads of gas and dark matter. Between them lie vast voids, deserts of space almost entirely empty. On the grandest scales, the universe looks less like a spray of stars and more like a neural network. And here the comparison becomes uncanny. Place an image of the cosmic web beside a map of the human brain, and the resemblance is undeniable. Both are webs of filaments connecting dense hubs. Both rely on the same balance. Too few connections and the network collapses, too many and it becomes inefficient. Statistically, the distribution of links in both systems follows similar laws. One is made of stars, the other of neurons separated by 27 orders of magnitude in scale. And yet the blueprint rhymes. Is it just our pattern-hungry minds drawing connections? Maybe. A galaxy cluster is not a neuron. Gravity and dark matter are not synapses. But when systems separated by incomprehensible scales converge on similar architectures, it begs the question, are they solving the same kind of problem? How to connect, how to distribute, how to balance efficiency with resilience. The cosmic web formed from the physics of gravity and expansion. Tiny fluctuations in the early universe, ripples in the primordial plasma, grew over billions of years. Regions with slightly more matter pulled in more, forming filaments, while emptier regions drained away, leaving voids. The result? A foam-like structure, a universe that looks less like a void and more like a living network. On smaller scales, galaxies themselves display familiar patterns. Spiral arms curl like seashells and hurricanes. Star clusters resemble the scattering of pollen or the pattern of raindrops on a window. Planetary rings ripple with the same wave mechanics that shape ripples in a pond. Physics keeps reaching for the same toolkit no matter the scale, and yet the resemblance to the brain lingers. Both brains and the cosmic web must move information. In your head, electrical signals fire across neurons. In the universe, gravity transmits information about mass and energy, shaping where galaxies form. Both systems are modular, clusters within clusters, hubs within hubs, connected by bridges. Both balance local specialization with long-distance integration. In neuroscience, that's what allows thought. In cosmology, it's what allows galaxies to form communities, not just islands. No one is saying the universe is conscious in the way you are conscious, but the echo is there, structures that emerge from simple rules, scaling up until they resemble one another, and once you've seen the resemblance, it's hard to ignore. This is the moment in our journey when scale ceases to matter. A neuron and a galaxy cluster, a brain and the universe, they're all following variations of the same rules. The blueprint is not bound to biology or to physics alone. It is more fundamental, an architecture that reappears whenever matter is given freedom to move, connect, and grow. For some, this realization is comforting. It suggests we belong, that we're not an exception carved into a hostile cosmos. For others, it's unsettling, because it raises the possibility that what we call life may simply be the universe's way of drawing filaments and spirals over and over on every canvas it can find. And so we stand at a crossroads of interpretation. Either these patterns are coincidences, shapes our minds can't help but connect, or they are hints that life and cosmos share a common logic. Maybe the reason neurons and galaxies look alike is because there are only so many ways to build a resilient, efficient network. Maybe the universe is not imitating life. Maybe life is imitating the universe. If that's true, then the boundary between biology and cosmology starts to blur, and the blueprint we've been tracing so far, through diatoms, rivers, shells, and snowflakes, turns out to be the same blueprint etched into the largest structure ever discovered. If the blueprint repeats itself across scales, then perhaps it repeats across worlds. To imagine alien life, we don't need to leave Earth. We just need to go deeper, into the ocean's twilight, where sunlight fades and strange bodies drift in silence. Here, you meet creatures that seem conjured from imagination. Comb jellies with rainbow light running down their transparent ribs. Chains of salps, ghostly tubes linked together like beads, stretching for meters through the water. Jellyfish that vanish in daylight but glow at night as if filled with stars. These forms are so delicate, so unfamiliar, they might as well be emissaries from another planet. And yet, they are here, abundant, essential to the ocean's ecosystem. Life in the deep ocean shows us that biology can thrive under extreme pressures, near freezing temperatures, and in total darkness. In fact, Earth's most alien-seeming creatures may also be its most adaptable. They are proof that once physics grants the right flows of energy, life bends itself into shapes that look alien to us, but are perfectly natural responses to their environment. Some of the most astonishing ecosystems are not powered by sunlight at all, but by heat and chemistry. At hydrothermal vents along mid-ocean ridges, black smokers belch superheated, mineral-rich water into the abyss. Around these vents, life blooms. Giant tube worms, shrimp, and microbes that eat hydrogen sulfide instead of sunlight. Entire food webs are powered by chemistry alone. This discovery overturned the assumption that life needs the sun. It doesn't. It needs energy and gradients, differences to exploit. The blueprint doesn't care if that energy comes from photons or from boiling water, rising through cracks in the seafloor. Now take that insight and look skyward. On Saturn's moon, Enceladus, jets of water vapour erupt from cracks in its icy surface. When NASA's Cassini spacecraft flew through those plumes, it detected organic molecules and molecular hydrogen, the very fuel that Earth's vent microbes thrive on. Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, hides an even larger ocean beneath its frozen crust. Tidal forces from Jupiter's gravity churn that ocean, keeping it liquid and restless. If hydrothermal vents exist there, the same blueprint that powers Earth's darkest ecosystems might be running beneath Europa's ice. This is where speculation becomes grounded. We don't have to dream up crystal-based life or silicon forest to imagine aliens. We just need to look at our own planet's most extreme habitats. Physics says energy gradients must be used. Chemistry says molecules will organize when nudged. The outcome is not guaranteed, but the odds are better than chance. If the blueprint is real, it should show up wherever energy flows and matter can move. And consider this. Many of the creatures we think of as alien-looking are actually among the oldest lineages on Earth. Jellies, sponges, microbes, they've been here for hundreds of millions of years, outlasting mass extinctions, evolving in forms that seem strange to us only because we are latecomers. Perhaps alien life too will not look humanoid or mammalian, but gelatinous, microbial, luminous. The kind of life that doesn't need bones or eyes, only patterns that physics keeps rewarding. Even beyond our solar system, the idea holds. Exoplanets orbiting distant stars may host conditions wildly different from Earth. But if physics pushes matter into the same recurring motifs, then spirals, branches, and networks might appear again and again, sculpted by necessity. Alien life may be stranger than anything we imagine, but also familiar in its logic, efficient, patterned, organized. Which leads to a provocative thought. When we finally meet life elsewhere, whether it's microbes beneath Europa's ice, plankton drifting in Enceladus's ocean, or something entirely new on a distant exoplanet, it may not shock us with how different it is. It may shock us with how much it resembles what we already know. Alien life may not be alien at all. It may be another verse in the same cosmic poem, written with the same recurring words: flow, pattern, shape, efficiency. And if that's true, then the blueprint of life isn't Earth's private code, it's the universe's habit. We've zoomed through oceans and across galaxies, but perhaps the most astonishing place to see the blueprint is here, inside ourselves. Start with your lungs, two balloon-like organs, soft and pink, but within them lies a forest. The airways branch and branch again, from trachea to bronchi to bronchioles, until they terminate in alveoli, tiny sacs that exchange oxygen for carbon dioxide. If you unravelled them all, their combined surface area would stretch to the size of a tennis court. This is not random design, it's fractal logic. Branching maximises surface area while minimising volume. It's the same strategy rivers use to reach every corner of a watershed, the same strategy trees use to feed their leaves with water. Your lungs breathe because physics demands efficiency. Next, look at your circulatory system. Arteries split into smaller arteries, then into capillaries so fine they thread between single cells. This branching web ensures no cell in your body is more than a hair's breadth away from nutrients and oxygen. If you laid all those vessels end to end, they'd stretch for about 60,000 miles, more than twice the circumference of the Earth. Again, fractals at work. What lightning does in the sky, your blood does in silence, every moment of your life. Then there's the brain. 86 billion neurons, each branching like trees, each firing across synapses to neighbours, forming a network so vast that its structure defies imagination. But it isn't chaos. Neuroscience has shown that the brain is a small world network, highly connected locally, but with long-range bridges that allow information to travel quickly. That same architecture shows up in social networks, the internet, even power grids. And it rhymes with the cosmic web itself. Clusters connected by filaments, balancing efficiency and resilience. DNA may feel like the obvious candidate for the blueprint of life, and in one sense, it is. 4 chemical letters, A, T, C, G, arranged in endless combinations, producing the diversity of life on Earth. But step back, and DNA is just one implementation of a deeper set of rules: encode, replicate, adapt. The real marvel is how those 4 letters can describe a body that obeys fractal branching, spiraling growth, and self-organizing networks. DNA doesn't defy physics, it takes advantage of it. Now consider the human microbiome. For every human cell in your body, there is roughly 1 microbial cell. Trillions of bacteria, viruses and fungi living on your skin, in your gut, even in your lungs. You're not a single organism, you're an ecosystem, a walking galaxy of microbes whose interactions are as vital as your own heartbeat. Without them, you couldn't digest food, train your immune system, or even produce certain vitamins. The blueprint here is ecological, a web of relationships, resilience through diversity. It mirrors the same principles that make rainforests thrive and galaxies cluster. Scaling laws also run through us. Across species, from shrews to whales, metabolism follows a predictable curve, body mass to the 3/4 power. This is why a hummingbird's heart races at over 1,000 beats per minute, while a whale's thuds only a handful of times each minute. Both extremes make sense when viewed through fractal transport networks. Smaller bodies must pump faster to keep up, larger bodies slower to conserve. You're part of this curve too, your own heartbeat ticking in rhythm with the same math that governs elephants and sparrows. Even your heartbeat contains hidden fractals. Healthy heartbeats show variability, tiny fluctuations that look similar across different timescales. Too regular, and it signals illness. Too chaotic, and the system collapses. The sweet spot, structured unpredictability, is exactly what complexity theory predicts for resilient systems. Your pulse is physics finding balance at the edge of order and chaos. Everywhere we look inside the human body, the same patterns surface. Branches to distribute, spirals to grow, networks to connect, fluctuations to adapt. It's the same language we've been tracing from snowflakes to galaxies. The blueprint doesn't just describe the cosmos, it describes us. And that realization reframes what it means to be human. We're not outside the system, not exceptions to the rules. We are the rules, written in flesh and thought. The same blueprint that shapes the Milky Way shapes the neurons firing as you listen to these words. The same geometry that sculpts a snowflake sculpts the branching airways inside your lungs. The blueprint is not just out there, it's in here, and it means that our search for understanding the universe is also a search for understanding ourselves. So far, the blueprint has been a story of wonder, of rivers that echo our lungs and galaxies that echo our brains. But this isn't just abstract beauty. The patterns are practical. They can be read, measured, and used. Humanity has already begun to borrow from the blueprint. Take medicine. Doctors have learned that healthy systems are fractal. The branching of airways in the lungs, the variability of heartbeats, the rough edges of tissues, all carry signatures of health. When those signatures change, it's an early warning. A lung scan that shows less fractal complexity can signal disease before symptoms become obvious. A heartbeat that loses its variability can predict trouble long before a patient collapses. Even tumours betray themselves through pattern. Aggressive growth often leaves a jagged fractal edge, while slower growth is smoother. By measuring these hidden geometries, medicine is learning to diagnose earlier, faster, better. Engineers too have taken notes from nature's sketchbook. Buildings in hot climates sometimes borrow their cooling strategies from termite mounds, whose branching tunnels regulate temperature. Computer chips use capillary-like channels to wick heat away, inspired by blood vessels. Architects design trusses that branch like trees, achieving strength with minimal material. This field has a name, biomimicry, but the principle is simpler. Find what physics already solved, then copy it. Climate science may be where the blueprint matters most. The ocean's invisible forests, phytoplankton, bloom in fractal whirls visible from space. These patterns reveal the hidden currents that drive Earth's climate engine. Phytoplankton produce roughly half of the oxygen in the air you're breathing right now. They also lock carbon away, steering the fate of the planet's atmosphere. To track them, satellites scan the ocean for subtle colour shifts, turning blooms into data. By reading the blueprint at this scale, scientists can model how Earth itself breathes. And then there is technology. Artificial neural networks, the engines of modern AI, were inspired, at least loosely, by the human brain. Billions of nodes passing signals, learning by adjusting connections. Today, these systems are already helping us read patterns we can't see ourselves, detecting early signs of disease in scans, mapping ecosystems, predicting weather. In a way, AI is a tool the blueprint built to help us recognize itself. The lesson in all of this is that the patterns are not just metaphors, they're instructions. They tell us how to build, how to heal, how to adapt. The same spirals and branches that shape seashells and snowflakes are now guiding skyscrapers and supercomputers. But there's also a humbler lesson. The blueprint existed long before us. We are not inventing these solutions, we are rediscovering them. And in doing so, we are reminded that we are not outside of nature, not separate from the cosmos. We are participants in a repeating story, one that physics has been telling since the beginning. From a drop of seawater to the sweep of galaxies, we've traced the same motifs: branches, spirals, networks, waves. They repeat not because nature is lazy, but because physics is relentless. Energy must flow, matter must move, and when it does, these shapes appear, again and again, across every scale. Your lungs echo trees, your blood vessels echo rivers, your brain echoes the structure of the universe itself. The glass houses of diatoms mirror the symmetry of snowflakes, while the spiral of a shell mirrors the arms of a galaxy. This is the blueprint, not a single code, but a family of solutions that keep winning the same contests: efficiency, connection, resilience. What does this mean? Perhaps life is not rare because it is miraculous, but because the rules are universal. Given energy, imbalance, and time, matter doesn't just sit. It organizes, branches, spirals, and weaves itself into webs. And sometimes, those webs open their eyes and wonder at themselves. So the next time you look at a tree, or a river, or the stars, remember, you are not just looking at nature. You're looking at the handwriting of the cosmos, written everywhere, including in you.